Welcome back to the Coruscant Nights podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Cooper. Alongside me, as always, is Jack. And today we're discussing the finale of The Acolyte, episode
Mm,
8 of potentially season 1. We're still unsure if we're getting a season 2, but that's for a later date to discuss.
yep.
Just quickly, before we get into this very exciting discussion, a reminder that we are on social media at Coruscant Nights. The link will be in the description to our TikTok and our Instagram. And also a special thanks to our patrons. We appreciate you all. If you want to check out the after show, which we do after every single podcast now, it is free on our Patreon. And the link will be in the description, or you can use the QR code on the screen right now. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Now, we have not spoken about this, only kind of
Yeah.
alluded to what we thought, but I know
Yeah.
no specifics of what you think, so I'm very
Yeah.
curious. Please hit me with your initial reaction.
My initial reaction watching it and after was like, what just happened? Like weird decision making and just like the last aspect. Like, I'm just gonna quickly jump to the end already with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
May and Osha bit.
yep.
Out of pocket, out of nowhere, just weird. Like, have we ever had a Sith Jedi person get their mind erased for like only to like a certain extent?
Uh,
Did we have?
we, I, what happened with that guy in episode 1? Or I don't even know. Probably not. Probably
Like,
not.
more, we've had like Jedi mind tricks where like they
Yeah,
make him
yeah.
speak the truth. Yeah. Anyway, weird. This like Osha's like, yeah. Oh, and the whole bit with the bleeding the crystal. Oh yeah, she's powerful, very evil now. Oh no, I'm chilling. I'm fine. But I'm gonna join you because I don't want May to get in trouble. But then May's still gonna probably be in trouble in some way or form. But then you're gonna forget everything because you have to forget everything instead of lying. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this show is hot garbage. It is. This season is after it. I was like, if it was a movie, it would be somewhat redeemable because they tried to drag out this stupid plot line with these twins who aren't even the same. They're the same person. They're not even sisters. It's creation in the Force, and then we got that cool reveal of you know who.
Mm.
And but which makes me wonder. I'm like, oh no, are they going to be like he's going to learn the path to immortality and stop people from dying and creation life from bloody Osha and the witches? Like, oh,
Maybe,
great.
maybe.
Like, what is this show? Okay, let me just before I get into any more specifics. Overall, I thought it actually started off not too bad, aside from "Go to Hell, Jedi." Horrible line,
Yeah,
cringe,
yeah,
cringe as what the.
yeah.
Every episode you get like good girl get mad. Now we got go to hell Jedi. Go to hell Jedi. Oh my gosh. So and then title card. I was like, well, we're in for a treat. We're
Yeah.
in for a treat in the finale. I was like, here we go. Um, Aside from that specific moment, I thought it actually started off the first half. I don't think was too bad until the point of Soul dying, and I think since then it just went down. I'm like, there's no way he's died like this. What an
Yeah.
absolute B word. Like, that's
Yeah.
the worst way to go out.
Yeah.
And then I once he did go out and before the Venestra stuff, I was like, here we go. And I called it. I was like, they're gonna rat him. Like, he's gonna be the soul. What's it called? What's the opposite of a victim? He's the soul. The soul.
The soul
he's a,
soul.
he's a
He's the
soul
perpetrator. He's the one that commits the
perpetrator.
crime.
They're going to blame it on him, and that's why they're not going to know the Sith returned, and that's
Yeah.
why. Oh, this stinks.
But to be fair, I mean, like I said in my Instagram review, they've
Mm.
like this show's been predictable since episode 3.
Yep. Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, why? It would be better if it was a movie because we wouldn't have known, obviously, like until the end of the movie. Like
Mm.
with this weekly episodic thing, it just shows even more in the show that they're dragging out unnecessary stuff and trying to
Mm.
make reveals be authentic and proper. But it's just no attachment at all. Like, even when May and Osha were saying goodbye, giving their last hug, and they were crying their eyes out, I'm like, I have no care,
Yeah.
no connection
Yep.
at all.
Yep.
They barely built up this stuff, and I'm just sitting there like this.
Yeah. I agree. In my notes I said I don't care.
Yeah, literally have no attachment to them at all. And even okay, we'll get into that stuff later. I out of rating a pure score, it has to be a 3 out of 10. It is it
Oh,
is it is
wow.
so bad. And the
Wow.
slow-mo weird. Oh, I'm gonna go into it later. It's just weird. Weird,
Okay.
weird, weird.
I did not think it would be that low. My
It
goodness.
is it is pretty hot garbage if you ask me.
So you're saying that this episode was worse than last week's? Because you gave
Hey,
last week a
so
5.
here we go. This is what okay. people listening, I'm going to give an overall at the end of this of a whole
Yeah, yeah,
season.
yeah.
You can't. I'm not comparing my ratings to each other in the
Okay.
sense of like in terms of enjoyment. This one's up there higher purely from some moments,
Hmm.
but as a finale and on its own of the choices, and if you're not thinking that there's going to be a season two, and this was just a purely one season thing, because they
Hmm.
really didn't. They haven't really been vocal. Like they said, oh, maybe production of season two is going to happen, but like if this just ends like this is hot garbage. Nothing's
Mm.
happened. Like
Hmm.
they just made a one season show with nothing really happening. Like no context to anything. If anything, they've opened the door, which like more now, which it should have been explored initially.
Correct.
Like why are we getting all the stuff that should have had like way
Right at the
before?
end. Yeah.
Such a useless show. You don't even have to watch like the middle bit, apart from like the Jedi killing episode 5, and then the first three plus a little bit of last week's flashback, and then you're done.
Hmm.
Like simple as like it's anyway, yeah, you go into it.
I want to just mention quickly
Mm.
that I think you mentioned the moment when May and Osha are crying and like all that. I'm like, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, I get it was an emotional moment for them. First of all, they were fighting each other not 10 minutes
Yep.
before. They wanted
Yep.
to kill each other.
Yeah.
I will say, I think that May and Osha might be down with Trace and Rafa as the most unlikable
Oh
pairing
yeah.
in Star Wars history.
It's even funnier because they're the one person.
Yeah, I know. And look, this is nothing against Amanda
Oh
Stenberg. I
yeah.
think she does a
Yeah.
great job, but just the characters are bland and boring and they've got nothing going for them.
100%.
I wanted to get that way out of the way. I quite liked this episode. I found myself shocked a couple times, which is what I feel like good episodes do, and that's what the best episode, episode 5, did. It shocked me. Even though like
True.
it was pretty much all action and no real story, it shocked me that that stuff was happening. So I guess maybe deviations from what I had expected. Um, so in that sense, I found it quite enjoyable. I was gonna give it a 7, maybe a 7.5, just because I did find it enjoyable. But again, there are so many inconsistencies in this
Mm.
episode that have been present
Mm.
the whole season. Like you
Preach.
mentioned already, how is it that every single episode in this season has got a pretty entertaining and good first half, and then
Mm.
just slows right down, gets really basic, really boring
And then
in the
plot.
second half? Yeah. So I don't understand what happened in the writing process, in the editing
Mm.
process, but just yeah, it
Yeah.
first half was fantastic. The lightsaber fight with
Mm.
kind of even the political stuff on Coruscant. I'll get
Yep.
into a bit more of that later. That was fun. That was
Mm.
good. That was
Mm.
what I felt should have been in the series a bit earlier.
Yep.
But beyond that, when it was focusing on May and Osha
Ugh.
and um I guess Kymir was there, not really doing
Yeah.
much.
Just standing
It
there.
just and even like the Jedi coming to the forest again, it's like,
Did
oh,
nothing again.
yeah, I it just slowed right down, and I'm just
Ugh.
like, nope, get this over with. Don't need to
Yeah.
see it anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I liked the episode not as much as I had hoped. I thought it worked okay as a
Individual.
finale, but do think that there is definitely some mysteries to be explored in season 2
Yeah.
if it happens. But like, so some people might call me hypocritical because I really despise the Ahsoka finale, but that
Yeah.
at least was setting up multiple different things where this you don't really know if it's going to. But I feel like with
Mm.
Ahsoka, it's just that it was such a letdown from being so hype for me, at least earlier. Whereas the Acolyte has always been a bit like,
Not
it hasn't
hype.
been great, but it hasn't been bad, but it's been consistent. And then it's like the finale wasn't a complete drop off. It was kind of
Yeah.
the same level.
But if you're comparing those two specifically, I actually agree that it has similar things. I feel like both of these though literally set up more things rather than resolving anything,
Yes.
right? So if you're saying on that basis, then you should not like this finale. I mean, you should not like this episode as a finale like you did with Thrawn, like Ahsoka. I better call it Thrawn
Okay, that's
because
fair enough.
because I think these two both alone, getting all the other stuff out the way, are better episodes rather than finales. Like I think they're both not very good finales.
Mm,
So if you're looking at it like that,
yeah.
mm,
Um, you did mention before the slow-mo, and I want to talk about the lightsaber fight a bit because
yeah,
there are a couple. It was a good fight, good choreography again. It
yeah,
wasn't. It
yeah,
wasn't as stellar as episode five's. It wasn't
hmm
as kind of slow as episode
yeah.
seven's.
It's like a
But it was
mixture.
kind of. in the middle, I felt like a lot of times they were just kind of doing this and
Yep,
kind of
yep,
not really
yep.
looking. There was no
Just like
choreography
this.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I found obviously besides the slow-mo, which was really weird, how does
Mm.
Sol fall backwards and then
Backward
land on
and
his feet?
float. Yeah.
Um,
I don't know.
but I didn't like that, and this is a critique that we've had for a while on lightsabers, is that when they were hitting the roof in the hallway, it wasn't leaving any marks, any scorch marks. It reinforces
Attention
that
to
point.
detail. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it would have helped,
Yep.
but it just yeah, it was like, hang on, that it just looks like a baseball bat now. The
Yep.
old
Yep.
the old infamous baseball bat. So,
Yeah.
what do you think of the fight?
I actually thought it was okay. I thought they had some musical elements to it. However, why are we getting like once again, Star Wars has this thing where it's like, let's just cut away from the action and focus on another action that's not even as good or dialogue that's
Yeah.
not that good. We kept cutting away back to the silly twin fight
Yep.
and the weird harmonizing vocals in that made it feel like it was I couldn't quite the whole time I was like, this sounds familiar. This
Mm.
exact harmonica thing sounds like it's from another show. Or and then I started getting the vibe. It sounded not as good, but similar to the Enfys Nest kind of
Oh,
um
yeah.
harmonic kind of thing. I'm like, ooh, but it's just not as good.
Yeah.
Um anyway, with the fight itself, I thought there was a lot more useless choreography, if that
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
Just
I
like
agree.
unnecessary ones rather than thinking of complex. And see, that's the thing. People liked episode 5, and I did too, for how rogue the choreography felt. Like it didn't feel like it was that what's the word? Like a dance, like a routine. However, this one felt like, oh, we're gonna do some cool choreography, but then let's not go too far with it. So then they just like halfway through in some aspects, they were just waving it at each other. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
can't just do that. At least make it I prefer it to make it look like a dance rather than just uh aimlessly swinging it around kind of thing,
There.
which
Yeah.
I it was.
Yeah. There is a bit of danger with doing it like a dance because I found that in the sequel trilogy, as much as
That wasn't
I
good.
don't even
That
need to talk
wasn't good
about my
choreography
opinions.
though.
It was all right choreography, but
Oh no,
it did look like it was very much, it wasn't like an actual fight. It was the actors were trying to remember what they had to do next and which way to swing.
it
It's
was
like with
god awful
dancing, you got to
choreography.
think ahead and think of what you're doing.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why like people like to, and you I think too like to critique Revenge being like, oh, it's so fast. It's so it looks like they've done, but I'm like, no, but it's not the same because
Hmm.
Disney sequels one tried to do like choreography proper, but it was a bit slow and it looked like they were trying to think about what's to do next. When the other one was just going for it, and if they stuffed it up, they probably just would have reshot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just
Yeah.
got to full send it, and I think these guys full send it, but the choreography itself is not that great. Like in terms of a
Yeah.
routine, it's probably better in a group setting, like how we saw Camille take out all of them, like where he's just
Mhm.
kind of doing it against a lot of people. But when it's a one-on-one situation, I don't think it worked as well.
Yeah.
I also think Camille's character itself was good for the first half again, but then fell off where he was just standing there
Yeah.
literally for the rest of the episode, not saying a word,
Yep.
not doing anything, not even trying to seduce. He basically got what he wanted by not saying a word.
Yep.
Literally just stood there. And Osha's just like, yep, I'm joining with you. And he's like,
Mm.
okay,
Yeah.
like I guess that's happening now. And then it's like, yeah, and then he went back to May for a second, and then he went back to Osha when she bled the crystal, and then oh, she's gonna turn evil, but then she bled the crystal, but she's not actually evil. She's just a bit upset. So you're telling me that anyone that's a bit upset can bleed a kyber crystal? Great.
I
Uh,
wouldn't read too far into that.
no, but that's what I mean, though. Bleeding a kyber crystal is such a, like a big thing. You know what I mean? It is
It
meant
is.
to be a big thing. And what? But she's that upset that that happens, and now she's like, "Oh, I'm kind of still not. I'm still kind
Well,
of good, but I'm not really evil. But
you
I'm
gotta,
going to you to be evil because I want to protect my sister." Makes sense.
yeah, but you also gotta think that like she trusted Soul for like 10 or 16 years or whatever. So it's like
That's
to
just
have
naive,
someone
though.
betray that, it must have been
True.
pretty hard. I'm not trying to
I
defend
think
it. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
I
find a
think
reason.
I agree. I think a lot of the elements in the show could have been somewhat better if we just cared about it more and they built up aspects more. I even felt like their connection with Osha and Soul wasn't even that great because we didn't really get many flashbacks with them as like if we had flashbacks of them when she was like younger and they were training her and he was training her, maybe I would get more connection. All we got was like when he first brought her into the thing and he's just like Osha. and that's it.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh shit, I really have a connection. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like that's all we get. Like I'm like, there's
Mm.
no connections, there's no and okay. If it's all right with you, I want to move on to the cameo. Two
Okay.
cameos actually. We
Sure.
had two.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just do cameo at the end first. I
Yeah.
called it.
Okay.
When Vanessa's walking into the room and she says Master, I was like, before it showed up, I'm like, we're gonna see Yoda.
Yeah.
Okay, we get the back of his head. Lovely. Fantastic.
Puppet
Wasted
Yoda.
time. Why even get it? Like,
Well,
like,
my issue with it was Leslie Headland said before the season even came
yeah,
out, it's like
too expensive.
Yoda will not be showing up in this series.
Yeah,
And granted, he it's not like a
he
massive
did.
thing, but
Yeah.
it's like, he did. I know you don't want to spoil it, but don't
It makes
outright
me
say he's not.
it makes me more annoyed that we only see the back of his head, and it makes me more annoyed that he's even in the show because like what he was just oblivious to all this and even questioning like why would you have your full
Okay,
trust in Vanessa's opinion or
with
even that it all went down like that.
yeah. Look, with my limited knowledge on the Jedi in this time, I feel like Yoda is a part of the High Council, and then there's
Not the Jedi.
Venestra
Yeah.
and what like her level, and then there's lower like Soul and everything.
Yeah.
And so what I feel like is the High Council didn't even bother to get involved with it, and they didn't know about it because it
But
was
then
being handled by the people who
so
were
he's
lower.
yeah, so you're just trying to say he blindly trusted Vanessa because he didn't
Probably.
want to do his own. Yeah, but that's
Well,
what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I still would think Yoda, out of all people, would be more curious, or he could
Probably.
sense that she was lying, or you know what I mean. But oh well, I'm just gonna brief over that. Let's go to the next one. Why did this happen in the first like 10 minutes almost?
Hmm.
And also, why did he show up so creepily, lurking in the shadows? And why did we get no other mention of it? He's just chilling on that planet, watching Camilla. Is he working with Camilla? Is he just waiting to strike? Is he just being a creep? Like what? Like
How did he get that?
yeah, like why is he like unless this is his home planet literally, and this is the like but at this point in time, he's a Sith Lord,
Yeah.
right? Plagueis. And obviously people are gonna some people I looked online. Some people were like, is this Plagueis? I'm not sure if it's plate.
I knew straight away.
Look at his face. I even saw by his fingertips. I was like, oh, it's Plagueis. And then he
Yeah.
saw his face. I'm like, that's Plagueis. Like
Yeah.
he's got that weird elephant stretched head looking thing.
The
Like,
only one other person it could have been was Tenebris
yeah.
or someone new, but I
He's got
doubt they
the
would have done that.
he's got that
Yeah,
chunk face.
Tenebris is chubby.
Yeah. So I'm
So
like, too many questions having I like seeing him because I thought he actually looked pretty cool,
yeah.
right? Like from what we can see in the shadows. But why is he in here? Like, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff, like you're leading into season two,
Yeah.
and I really don't want to watch a season two of this. I don't want a season two of this. But they've done me dirty, and I kind of want a season two of this because I want to see him. But then I also don't want to see a season two of him because I don't want them to ruin his character and be like, oh, he gets all this Darth Plagueis the Wise storyline and his birth creating life from Osha's like coven or like somehow like the way they look at and then the way that Osha and Camille like holding hands looking into the sun so weird. I'm
Yeah. I don't know what the significance of
weird.
that
I
was.
don't get it. It's it's a there's some very bad storylines in this show, and this episode emphasized a lot of them greatly, being the finale. And I think that's where my biggest issues are. Like, even if the fight scene was perfect, I can't give it that high because everything that had to do with the plot specifically was trash. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like everything else that wasn't really plot related, like without the twins and stuff, is actually pretty good, entertaining. I'll give you that. Some of it was entertaining, and as an enjoyability factor, it was maybe up there. But as as an episode and everything else into it, oh wow, it's not good. And would also like to mention quickly too the guy who's what's his name the guy who talked to Vanessa before too.
David Harwood.
Yeah, he
Um,
played in Supergirl.
oh, did he?
He was Martian Manhunter, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, cool.
Or not Martian. Yeah, I think he was Martian Manhunter. But anyway, I was like, hey, that's guy from the CW.
Nice.
But anyway, I was like, yeah, I like that guy. I think he's a good actor. He plays that
Senator
strong
Ray, hang
senator.
on.
Yeah,
I'll
like
tell
Miles
you.
Cooper searches it up. He
Senator
plays
Rayencourt.
Ravencourt. Yes, it sounds like Ravencourt from Loki.
Was that a thing?
Yeah, wasn't that her name? The
Ravencourt.
or Ray. What was her name? Who worked for Kang and like Kang. Um,
Oh, I
what was
don't
her
even
name?
know. It's been a while
You know,
since
the
I watched
judge
Loki.
lady.
I do know. I do
Yeah,
know.
I thought hers was Ravencourt or something like that or something. Anyway,
Hang
no
on.
one was
I'll
with
let you know.
yeah, with Owen Wilson. But I liked him and I liked how he portrayed kind of like a bit more of a threat politically.
Ravona Renslayer, way off.
Renslayer. Ravencourt, Renslayer. Come on.
No,
Come on. Give me
that's
some
way
credit.
off.
Come on, give me some.
No,
Renslayer. Come on.
no.
Um, I liked how he played a bit more of a political strong threat rather than a
Mm,
physical dominance, which is
mm,
good. And I really like that. And I thought we needed more political aspect in this show, but not
absolutely.
political in terms of like what's the word?
Not political in terms of like,
Real world issues currently that we're facing.
oh, okay.
I want politics in Star Wars. I don't want real world politics in Star Wars, like Disney trying to push agendas in the nicest way possible. That's what I want. They're not trying to push an agenda with this guy. He's just a political figure in
Mm,
Star Wars franchise and fictional world trying to dethrone the Jedi because he thinks that they're a religious cult who are blinded and everything, which I like. I don't want them pushing like real life agendas that we're dealing with nowadays in current society. Now that's stuff I don't agree
mm,
with in fictional shows, that is.
fair
But
enough.
yeah, I think that's just my little brief thoughts.
So I'll chat about like
Mm.
that actor as well, David. I think it's Harwood. Harewood. I'm gonna
Haywood?
say Harewood from now on.
Mm.
So I saw that he was like I saw on the wiki that he was supposed to appear in the show with a small role.
There it
And
is.
there it was, but I had speculated he might be the voice of this second Sith character that we were gonna see.
Yeah.
And when I saw him on screen, I'm like, ah, damn it.
Yeah.
But I will say that was probably my favorite part of the episode. He
Yeah.
scolded Venestra and the Jedi, and that was like,
Mhm.
oh yes, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked seeing because we've heard of the Senate, but we haven't really had their like
Interactions.
inclusion in the story and interaction. And so now about like there being a hearing into the ways of the Jedi and how they've been an unchecked source of power posing as
Mm.
a religion. Yes, give me more of
Mm.
that. That's
Mm.
awesome. That's
Mm.
what I want to see. Not
Mm.
oh oh, we need to go out to not Kof. What's the planet called?
Brendok.
Oh, Brendok, yeah, and get these witches because they're using the Force in secret. Oh,
Yeah.
we need to kill them. We need to cover it up. That's what we
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah.
So I liked that including. I thought it was very good.
Yep.
And I think it's also a storyline that should have been introduced earlier
Way earlier. Mm-hmm.
because yeah, just missed opportunity. I
Yep.
suppose. You kind of spoke about the crystal bleeding before.
Mm.
I was a bit like, does this happen? But then I remembered Jedi Survivor, Dagon Gera does the same thing, yellow to red. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember the blade being two different colors. That was strange
Yeah,
to
that
me.
was. I thought it would have just. I thought, yeah, because it looked like when we got the close up of the crystal itself, it was just going to ignite red rather than
Mm,
do a weird multicolor
mm.
transformation. But honestly, looked cool visually, so I'll give it a pass.
It
But
did.
mm.
Um, did you do you mind if I chat about Soul quickly?
Hmm.
So I feel like Soul had the most anticlimactic death out of
Yeah,
anyone in
yeah,
the show.
yeah.
For a main character, there wasn't even any sound like
Q,
bite to
yeah,
know that his neck had been
actually
crushed or
dead.
something.
Yeah,
Why is it that on Osha's first try that she was able to force choke him to death?
yeah.
I like the idea that that was how you're supposed to kill someone without a weapon. That's
Mm,
okay. Why didn't we think of that earlier? Don't know. Well, I
mm.
certainly didn't think of it earlier. Maybe others did.
I
But
didn't think of the force really. Yeah.
besides that, what a fantastic character. Just really
Just his whole
done
character just
dirty.
yeah, his whole development just basically it was like what he's yeah, his symbol of death was just his character development dying at the same time.
Yeah.
Just instant dead. Oh, there
I
goes
will
Soul.
say, when Venestra said like this was the work of a rogue Jedi who was selfish and I kind of did agree with that because you got to think about it.
It is his fault.
It
Yeah.
is his fault. He just wanted a Padawan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something about his upbringing, maybe he was abandoned, maybe he
Mm,
wasn't loved, and maybe he's just seeking that like company. But
mm,
since we don't know about that, it just seems weird that he wants a Padawan and felt so drawn to these two kids. So it just seemed very, very strange to me that yeah, that well, it didn't seem strange to me. It seemed good that this was
mm.
kind of it didn't okay, it wasn't good. It's not a good resolution, but
Yeah.
it at least made sense to me. And as much as we like Soul, it was like, yeah, that
It just
he
felt
was selfish and he was a
Yeah.
bit greedy, and yeah, I mean,
It was just a bit of a kick in the guts, really.
it is.
I don't know.
It
I
is.
just feel like they didn't, but also it left me hanging too for a while that is he actually like dead? Like I don't know about you, but like I was like they didn't make a snap sound. It didn't really. He just kind
Mm,
of fell, and I'm like, is he just knocked out? Is he just
yeah.
unconscious? I, like you assume that he's dead, but I was, like, yeah, there wasn't even any like real emphasis on it apart from like her going like this,
Yeah, I
like
know.
11 from Stranger Things. But
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just yeah, that's why I picked the picture as my background because I
Yeah,
was
that's
just
fair.
well, that just happened, I guess. So yep, there you go, Soul.
Yeah. Um, the last thing I want to mention before we get into our final thoughts
Mm.
and everything, I just want to say this has been the most inconsistent show with
Oh yeah,
titles.
yeah,
What the heck? I
yeah.
get they were going for
Horrible.
duality, and then they were kind of like, oh, let's just do single words for the
Mm,
flashback episodes.
mm.
You want to know what the title of this episode was called? The Acolyte.
The title of the
Whoa!
show. Wow.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa! The
Mind
Acolyte.
blown.
Who would have thought?
Has that ever happened? Title of
Nope.
the title of the episode.
No. Boring, lazy. I don't. Are you
And
trying to
yeah,
say that May is now the
all this
no,
time,
Osha's the acolyte?
yeah, all this
Oh.
time, it was OSHA. Okay, cool. But like, even still, I'm not gonna say I want more of of these characters. However, I don't think that we saw a lot of Osha and May, but we didn't even get much development with them. Is that weird to say? Like, we
No.
spent so much time with them, but all of the time was basically just useless. We had 2 episodes of flashbacks, which we just got exactly the same Osha content and May
Yep.
content. Really,
Yep.
I'm just like, you're meant to care about these main characters, and we care more about Soul, and he's still was more entertaining, even though he had some weird situations too. I don't know. It's just weird choices. Not. I feel like a lot of people had their own opinions on how they wanted the show to go, and they just all put it into one whole thing.
Yeah.
They're like, I want this to happen. I want her to have a change of heart, but then she doesn't have a change of heart. But then she does have a change of heart. But then
Yeah. I know.
like backtracking every single time. And
So
I
weird.
like to mention that you in the start said, "Oh, this episode shocked me, and that's why I enjoyed it," kind of thing.
Hmm.
Well, yes, I agree. The shocked me in episode 5 is because it was done well. The
Mm.
shocked me in this one just made me realize how poor the writing is. That they couldn't even have one confident bridge of a storyline. They still had it loose ends, and they still changed their whole destinies of certain characters and fates out of nowhere, and
Mm.
full 360s and everything, 180s, and it's just no good, no good.
Look, I mean, so next week we're gonna just re-rank our
Yeah,
favorite, re-rank our live action shows with the
rankings.
Acolyte.
Yeah,
Um, and I feel like that will kind of be more telling than
yeah,
scores and everything can give you that
yeah.
we're giving. So stay tuned for next week when we discuss
Mm.
that. But Jack, final thoughts on the show. Give it an overall score,
Overall
and
score.
yeah, just let the viewers know what you want them to know about the show, what you thought of
Yep.
it.
Um, if you want my in-depth stuff, go through our podcasts of each week.
Hmm.
Overall, out of 10, it's not an average of all the ones I've given because I don't think that's fair,
Yeah,
really, because I think episode 5 alone was just very good. If you're going off that, then that should
yeah,
be way higher.
yeah,
But look, I like using the word mid, and I think it's a very mid show,
yeah.
but I don't think it's even average. So I'm gonna have to go one below as a 4.
Okay, all right.
Because the four part that is there is very cool moments within a bad show,
Hmm.
and 6 that aren't there is the convoluted plot, the lazy writing, poor acting in some instances,
Yeah,
and just no intrigue in the other bits. That's where the
yeah.
other 6 is missing, I think.
Very well said.
um Overall, after getting teased with Plagueis and the loose ends, I would kind of, I don't want to say that. I don't want to be quoted being like, oh, he wants a
Mm.
season 2 of the Acolyte. I would like to see them, like Plagueis in particular, in a live action show continued. If it's not the Acolyte season 2 with the same writers in the same direction and the same actors in that sense, because you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do know what you're trying to
I
say.
like his character and I want him to be done justice, but with the way we're going, I don't think it will be. So
Hmm.
I'm conflicted if I don't want anything else to happen, so he just gets left untouched, or get developed more and actually be really cool. So I'm
Yeah,
conflicted. That's where I'm standing. Yep.
fair enough. That is fair enough.
Mm.
Um, I'll just my last little comment on the
Mhm.
Acolyte and with my score. You mentioned a point, I think it was episode 5, maybe 6, and that's a point
Mm.
that's really stuck with me for the whole show. and you mentioned that this show lacks an identity.
Yep.
And I feel like more than ever, that's so evident,
In this
especially in the
one.
last two
Mm.
episodes. I remember in the start, it felt like it was in, at least it wasn't like the best, but it was fresh and it had like some sort of establishment of what
Yep.
it wanted to be. And I guess it was the early stages of the mystery. But then as we kept going, it was like, okay, we had a flashback episode,
It's
fair enough.
pretty obvious.
Then we
Yeah.
went, and then I feel like episode four was really the start of when it started to go wrong,
So
because
boring.
that felt so detracted from the first two episodes.
Talking.
And then episode five was its own thing and really dark.
Yeah.
And then episode six was its own thing because that went kind of back to light-ish and kind of
Mm.
changed up things. Then episode seven again bundled with episode three, and then episode eight was its own thing as well. It's like it didn't feel consistently tonal wise, and it
Mm.
didn't feel consistent story wise. And I
Didn't
think
find
that's
their
where I'm
voice.
really struggling. So I you've heard me throughout the podcast.
Yep.
I haven't been the biggest ambassador of the
Yep.
show. I have critiqued it at certain times, but
Yep.
I have enjoyed the time that
Yep.
we've had with the show. I've enjoyed the characters that we've been given, the surprises, but I've really been let down by the writing
Mm.
the dialogue as well. So I think it's fair to go a 6.5 for
Yep.
me. There are shows. I mean, I'm not even going to mention.
Yeah.
We'll get into the discussion next week
Mm.
about where we
Mm.
rank this show in
Mm-hmm.
comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I would say a 6.5 for this show. My
Yep.
scores weekly will reflect something higher, but
Mm.
I really can't get over, especially the last 2 weeks. I think last week was the time I'm like, okay, yeah, I recognize what's going on. This is not very good. And then
Yeah.
that's kind of just changed my mindset on the whole thing. So
Yep.
six and
100%.
a half.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
actually, I was thinking you were going to say six, but then when he said 6.5, I'm like, okay, a bit surprised. I mean,
Yeah.
in my head, I was like, with where the way he's going, six probably sounds about, yeah.
Well, I've just given the last few episodes like sevens and eights, so it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense. Well, actually, last week I didn't give it a 7 or 8, but anyway,
Nah, last
yeah,
week you didn't. Yeah.
you know.
Mm. Hmm.
All right, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, that's all for me.
That was a good discussion, and obviously that brings us to the end of the
End of
Acolyte. Can you
Acolyte.
believe
That
it?
went fast.
That went so quickly. I
Yeah, it went
think,
so fast.
unlike in Ahsoka, which was our last live
But
action
longer.
show, where each week we were like anticipated to see what comes
Mm.
next. This one, it was more like,
How's it
oh,
going to get
let's
worse?
see what comes next. Let's see what they do this time.
Yeah.
But overall, I think, as a channel, we've seen good reception to this, which we are
Yeah.
thankful for.
Yeah.
And obviously, although it hasn't been a
Great.
cup of tea for everyone, we've had a good time breaking it down and, not maybe not watching it, but getting to discuss it at least and
Yeah.
hear
Discussion.
everyone else's opinions and the
Mm.
opinions of the community. So
Yep.
that's been good. And I suppose now we've got to wait 3, 4 months
Till
until
skeleton.
Skeleton Crew. So we're going to go
Mm.
back to our original podcast idea. Obviously, next week we'll do ranking the live
Yep.
action shows again, but then
Yep.
we've got heaps of ideas coming up after that. So make sure you
Mhm.
subscribe to stay tuned to those podcasts and our videos in between.
For sure.
Thank you for checking in every single week, and we appreciate you all. And
Mhm.
yeah, we will see you next week for the next podcast.
Thank you guys.
See you guys.